She ascended to the throne at just 6 days old, married at 16, and became a widow by 17. She was captivated by love, but that very passion ultimately dragged her into tragedy, forcing her to witness her lover stabbed 56 times right before her eyes, falsely accused, imprisoned, and finally, her head resting on the chopping block. This is the story of Mary, Queen of Scots, a woman who lived a life brimming with turmoil, political intrigue, and met a horrifying end that remains hotly debated to this day. But what really happened to this power-obsessed queen? Join us as we uncover the secrets behind the tumultuous life and tragic death of Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary was born on December 8, 1542, the only legitimate surviving child of King James V of Scotland. Just 6 days after her birth, tragedy struck. Her father died suddenly, likely from mental exhaustion following Scotland's disastrous military defeat to England at the Battle of Solway Moss, coupled with a bout of dysentery. King James V's lament, "It came with a lass, and it will go with a lass," alluding to the Stuart dynasty's beginning through a woman, Marjorie Bruce, and foreshadowing its end, became a bitterly ironic prophecy etched into Mary's life. Thus, Mary ascended to the throne of Scotland as a mere infant. At just 8 months old, Mary was already caught in a political whirlwind, promised in marriage to Prince Edward, son of Henry VIII of England, to ease tensions between the two kingdoms. However, this engagement was swiftly annulled due to fierce opposition from Scotland's Catholic nobility, who wished to preserve their traditional alliance with France. To shield Mary from the menacing threats of Henry VIII, who launched the rough wooing to force this marriage, and to solidify the French alliance at the age of 5, she was sent to grow up at the French court and betrothed to Francis, the Dauphin of France. Mary spent 13 years of her life in France, receiving an excellent education and earning praise as the most perfect child King Henri II of France had ever seen. She not only mastered multiple languages like French, Italian, Latin, Spanish, and Greek, but also excelled at horseback riding, falconry, and embroidery. Physically, she boasted bright auburn hair, hazel eyes, a long neck, and a tall, graceful stature, 1.80 meters or nearly 5 feet 11 inches, making her remarkably striking among her contemporaries. Although she contracted smallpox as a child, she was fortunate enough to be left without scars, retaining her regal beauty. However, during her time in France, Mary signed a secret document stipulating that if she died without an heir, Scotland and her claim to the English throne would pass to France. This raises a crucial question. Was this a selfless sacrifice for her kingdom amidst complex political circumstances, or a thoughtless act of youth, harboring profound future consequences? Mary married Francis in 1558, becoming Queen of France in 1559 when Francis ascended the throne. During this brief 18-month reign, Mary's uncles, the Guise brothers, seized control of the court and wielded much of the real governing power. They terrorized young royal family members and instigated numerous massacres of Protestant Huguenots, igniting the 30-year-long French Wars of Religion. However, Mary's queenship in France was short-lived. Francis II suddenly died in 1560 at the age of 16 from an ear infection leading to a brain abscess. Mary became a widow at just 17, a heartbreaking tragedy at such a tender age. She wore white, the traditional mourning color in France, signifying her profound grief. After 9 months in France waiting to see if she carried an heir, Mary returned to Scotland in 1561 after 13 years away from her homeland. This return was fraught with immense challenges. Mary was a devout Catholic in a kingdom rapidly embracing Protestantism. She was loathed by her Protestant subjects for attending Mass, dancing and dressing too lavishly. Her relationship with Queen Elizabeth I of England was also particularly strained, as Elizabeth refused to acknowledge Mary as her legitimate heir, despite Mary being next in line to the English throne by succession law after Elizabeth. Mary attempted to build amiable relations with the Protestant faction by appointing her half-brother, James Stuart, Earl of Moray, as chief advisor and bringing many other Protestants into her Privy Council. But this enraged the Catholic lords, placing her in a fragile and vulnerable position. Instead of focusing on domestic issues, Mary became entangled in the ambition to claim the English throne, a kingdom thriving on wool trade and the burgeoning of art, music and theatre. Was this return the beginning of a tragic chain of events, or an opportunity for Mary to solidify her power amidst political and religious storms? To bolster her claim to the English throne, in 1565, Mary married Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, her cousin. This marriage wasn't just politically advantageous. Mary was initially infatuated with Darnley due to his handsome, tall appearance, even declaring him the most well-proportioned and muscular man she had ever seen. However, the infatuation quickly faded. Mary soon realized Darnley was arrogant, weak, impulsive, and immature. Their relationship grew tense as Mary began to exclude Darnley from court affairs. Darnley, in turn, became more violent when drunk. The climax of their discord was the murder of David Rizzio, Mary's Italian private secretary. Darnley, along with Protestant nobles enraged by Rizzio's favor with Mary and rumors that Rizzio was the father of Mary's unborn child, stabbed Rizzio 56 times right in front of Mary while she was pregnant. This horrifying moment left a deep scar on Mary's soul and remains one of the most extreme moments of her life story. After this event, Mary gave birth to her son James in June 1566. Darnley's mysterious death in February 1567 further propelled Mary into a tragic spiral. The house Darnley was staying in was blown up by gunpowder, yet his body was found outside, strangled or suffocated, completely unaffected by the explosion. Suspicion quickly fell upon Mary and James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, believed to be her lover. Bothwell was tried and acquitted in a swift trial, which many believed was rigged. Just 1 month later, Mary married Bothwell in a Protestant ceremony, despite Bothwell's recent divorce and the extreme outrage this caused among both Catholic and Protestant nobles. This relationship is one of the most controversial points in Mary's life. Some sources suggest Mary was abducted and raped by Bothwell, forcing her into marriage. However, others suspected her complicity in Darnley's death, and her hasty marriage to Bothwell only strengthened that suspicion. Bothwell was eventually exiled and died in madness. So was Mary truly complicit in Darnley's death, or was she merely a victim of complex political conspiracies, blinded by a passionate yet ultimately ruinous love? The controversial marriage to Bothwell plunged Scotland into utter chaos. Mary was imprisoned at Loch Leven Castle and forced to abdicate her throne to her 1-year-old son, James VI. During her captivity, she suffered another tragedy, a miscarriage of twins, possibly Bothwell's children. However, Mary was not one to yield easily. After nearly a year of imprisonment, she successfully escaped Loch Leven in May 1568 with the help of her guards and supporters, including George Douglas and Willie Douglas. She even attempted to disguise herself as a laundress to get out, but her plan was foiled by her remarkably pale hands. After a second successful escape attempt, Mary rallied over 6,000 nobles, clergy and commoners ready to fight for their queen. Yet after a crushing defeat at the Battle of Langside against the Protestant forces led by her own half-brother James Stuart, Earl of Moray, Mary was forced to flee to England to seek protection from Queen Elizabeth I. Mary believed Elizabeth would help her reclaim her throne. However, contrary to Mary's hopes, Elizabeth did not assist. Instead, she held her captive as a prisoner. Elizabeth placed Mary under strict surveillance, moving her between various castles. Although she still enjoyed some privileges like attendance and money, Mary remained a prisoner, her life entirely in Elizabeth's hands. During this period, Mary's health began to decline. She suffered from severe rheumatism, leaving her crippled by the age of 40. Would Mary ever find freedom and restore her position? Or was this merely the beginning of a new chapter of imprisonment, a life filled with humiliation and confinement? Mary's imprisonment in England and her position as a Catholic with a claim to the English throne made her the focal point for numerous plots to overthrow Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. Notable conspiracies included the Ridolfi Plot, 1571, Throckmorton Plot, 1583, and Parry Plot, 1585, all of which were discovered and crushed. The incriminating evidence against Mary finally emerged from the Babington Plot in 1586. Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth's spymaster, intercepted an encrypted letter from Mary to Anthony Babington, in which Mary consented to Elizabeth's assassination. This was considered irrefutable proof to bring Mary to trial. Mary was brought to trial for treason in October 1586. She refused to acknowledge the jurisdiction of the English court, asserting that she was an anointed queen and not an English subject. Nevertheless, she was convicted. Elizabeth hesitated to sign the death warrant, even asking Mary's jailer if he could shorten her life without official orders, but he refused. Finally, under pressure from Parliament, Elizabeth signed Mary's death warrant. Mary was executed on February 8, 1587 at Fotheringhay Castle. Her final moments were both tragic and shocking. Mary wore a crimson petticoat, the colour of Catholic martyrdom, and refused to submit, declaring that she was no traitor. The executioner, a young man lacking the necessary experience, misjudged, forcing Mary to endure 2 to 3 axe blows to die. A more gruesome detail: after being beheaded, Mary's head fell from her wig, revealing her short greying hair, and her beloved pet dog was found beneath her skirts, running around in the ensuing chaos. This death transformed Mary into a martyrdom symbol for the Catholic faith. Was Mary's death justice for treason or a wrongful martyrdom at the hands of Elizabeth, a misunderstood, unjustly treated figure? The death of childless Queen Elizabeth I in 1603 brought an end to the Tudor dynasty. Instead, Mary's son, James VI of Scotland, ascended to the English throne, becoming James I, a momentous historical event that united England and Scotland under one crown. Despite her many mistakes and a life filled with tragedy, Mary, Queen of Scots, left a lasting legacy. King James I had his mother's remains exhumed and reinterred beneath a beautifully carved tomb in Westminster Abbey, right beside Elizabeth I herself. The Stuart dynasty, though facing many ups and downs, continued to reign over Scotland and England for another century, concluding with the death of Queen Anne in 1714. Has history been fair to Mary, or does she remain a controversial and mysterious figure, a woman whose fate was dictated by life and political conspiracies?